According to the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, they're warning that we need extra 3.5 million homes by 2030. So that is why we see that number 3 million being advocated by the parties. So that is based on the data that was provided by CMHC to make the housing affordable.
3.5 million by 2030. That's what CMHC is proposing for the houses to be built, just to be able to match the current supply, the current immigration levels, by the way. And right now, Mark Carney, by the way, is just promising that he would increase the level of housing built in Canada by double than what Trudeau proposed, which is Trudeau proposed roughly about 250, 260 a year, and Carney is promising roughly about 500,000 new houses every year. We are in April 2025. Think about 2030. So 500, even if he does 500, that would be 4, that would be still almost a million short of 3.5 before 2030 target. So I don't think it is a very realistic goal by CMHC that we would be able to create 3.5 million homes. Neither party has a very solid plan on really creating volume housing. I mean, for example, even Doug Ford was coming out with Greenbelt area. What about all the north of Ontario? What about Sudbury? What about Sault Ste. Marie? What about Thunder Bay? What about North Bay? What about Barrie? What about all these cities where you can create excess housing? But no, Doug Ford chose Niagara out of all these places to build, to open the Greenbelt area and to start creating housing. So really, really confusing on how these builders really choose the cities, choose the places they want to create housing in. I mean, the other areas, the people who are living in northern Ontario, in northern provinces, in prairie provinces, in provinces where the population, have you seen the population in Nova Scotia? The complete population of Nova Scotia is less than the population of just a couple cities in Ontario. The whole population of the province is less than just a couple cities in Ontario. So why not proposing more houses in those provinces? Why not proposing more immigration in those provinces? But we'll talk about that when we get into the topic for immigration. Your thoughts, Sunny?
Yeah, moving on to the climate and energy sector. We see Mark Carney proposing replacing the consumer carbon tax, which they already did, and that was a big relief to a lot of consumers. They almost saw like a 15 to a 20 to a 30 cent decrease in their day-to-day fuel levels that we're doing. So they are proposing replacing the consumer carbon tax with a green incentive program to reward environmentally friendly choices. However, they would still maintain their taxes on large industrial emitters. They're going to implement a carbon border adjustment to tax high pollution imports as well. So that is where we see Mark Carney heading in terms of going green or trying to be more active in trying to reduce the carbon emissions. On the other hand, we see conservatives, Pierre Poilievre, advocating a contradictory view to what liberals are proposing. They are looking to eliminate the carbon tax on the industry as a whole. They are looking to repeal the Impact Assessment Act and Canadian Energy Regulator Act to fast track resource projects like pipelines and mining. They're looking to establish a national energy corridor to expedite key energy infrastructure projects. So, in the inter-provincial trades which we still have a lot of capacities in terms of supplying oil that we're doing to the US. However, that oil is getting rerouted through US coming back to Canada, where Canada is buying the oil. However, conservatives plan is to prepare a pipeline that way they can serve out to the nation's demand as well. So that is a good incentive, that is a good plan out that they're coming up with. What do you think, Archit?
What is the size of population in the US? 350 million. What is the size of the population in Canada? It's about 10% of that. uh, 40 million right now. If you were to tell me that you can build a national energy corridor within the country, you can build a pipeline from the source to different provinces, to different cities, to supplement energy within the country, to increase the sales, to increase the energy, more barrels of oil, more LNG supply within the country. It would make more sense in a country such as the US, which is a highly populated place. They can source it, they can fund it, they can really benefit it. If they were to do it within the country with a high volume of population, it really makes sense. When you have a low population in the low population countries such as Canada, agreed, Canada has a lot of mass land. Canada has a huge land. Canada has a lot of land available. You build pipelines, but what you have to keep in mind, the population is still 40 million. How much energy can you really trade between the provinces? What is the volume really you can achieve at the end of the day? How much would these projects cost? I mean, look at the example of the pipeline, the Trans Mountain Pipeline. $3.5 billion is what Justin Trudeau paid for that pipeline when he bought it from Kinder Morgan in the US company. And how much did that pipeline ended up costing us in 2024 at the completion? More than $30 billion. 3.5 billion is what he purchased for. $34 billion is what it ended up costing. How much would these pipelines cost us? Now, Pierre Poilievre is coming out and he's saying, I will speed up the approval process. And Mark Carney is coming out and he's promising the exact same thing, that he's going to increase the approval process and the environmental review for these pipelines to be passed. What people do not recognize is, at the end of the day, really, how much can you trade between the provinces? That's just my opinion on this. But again, when it comes to pipelines, when it comes to LNG, I think I would put a greater level of trust in Pierre Poilievre's policy. You have to see, if you own a business, you will look at your profitability. The only thing that matters to you as a business owner is the profitability. How much money are you able to take home after every day of hard working? If you are a person, if you are working at a job, if you are an employee, you will always see how many hours did you put in your job, how much money are you taking home at the end of the day. If you're running a country, you will see what resources are you able to produce more that you can export or you can trade, where you can get the maximum revenue out of it. Canada has a lot of energy resources. Trudeau promised that he would sell a lot of hydrogen to other countries when he pushed his more green climate agenda. Could not even sell 2% of his targeted agenda, that he would sell a lot of hydrogen to other countries, that he was prioritizing over the oil industries or LNG industries or the natural resources, the natural gas industries. Similar thing, I don't think Mark Carney, while promising, while campaigning, he might be all pro for coming out with faster approval processes and faster environmental reviews. He is still going to end up focusing more on green superpower, on creating a more green energy resource, a green energy superpower, a green energy industries, building out more green climate energy industries in Canada, rather than focusing on what Canada can really produce in a great volume and export something to other countries that other countries really want. For example, China right now, China is looking for more oil to buy. And where do they have to go to buy more oil? They have to go to Russia. A potential trade deal between the US and China right now, the trade war that China and US are having right now, can be ended today if they have a good, nice, juicy, beautiful, a really nice oil deal between the US and China. If Canada is able to produce more oil, natural gas, LNG resources, in my opinion, that should be produced more. The permit, the regulation process should really be reduced than what it is right now for these pipelines to be built out. And I think the barrels that we are transferring each day, each month, should be able to increase more so that we as a country can get more export revenue. And we can also leverage what we are best at to reduce the tariff and trade restrictions and trade frictions that we have with other countries, with other nations using this. So, in my opinion, I would just say that I would much rather trust Pierre Poilievre with his plan when it comes to energy corridor with natural energy resource, when it comes to climate and energy in Canada, than Mark Carney. Plus, we already saw that Mark Carney was really the special convoy into the UN when he was the governor of Bank of England uh, for the green climate deal. What do you think, Sunny? What are your views on this?
Yeah. We see 2019, we saw a great focus on climate. About 500,000 Canadians joined a climate strike march in Montreal. That reflected great public pressure to go towards green policies. Now, what was the government's approach during that time? Trudeau launched the national carbon tax. And we see time and time liberals have advocated for that. Um, what do we see right now? We see Mark Carney also advocating for net zero carbon emissions and moving towards the green policies, moving towards the carbon neutral environments. So we do see that if liberals are placed in a position of power, they would naturally tend to be more towards the green initiatives, either being incentivizing the industries, or I think being taxing the industries on top of their carbon emissions that they're doing. Um, the other side, we see conservatives. They are taking a complete opposite approach. They are not looking to do anything in terms of carbon emissions or anything in terms of that. They might have a plan in place for trying to be more environment friendly later in when they launch their policies and stuff like that, but I do not see that as being their main agenda in the policies right now. So that is where we see both the parties favor the climate and energy sectors.